Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Promised Neverland manga review. This one's going to be for chapter 149, which is called An Obligation to Prove. And yeah, interesting chapter here. We kind of finally, I suppose, got the Queen jumping into action as we suspected. Progress of Rei and Emma towards the capital. Definitely didn't feel like the longest or most in-depth chapter, but I thought it was solid without being like anything particularly impressive. But I like the depth they're giving to the demons here, giving them a lot of kind of screen time and focus. At the end of the day, this whole situation that's happening here is to save them, so it makes sense to characterize them to a degree. But yeah, let's get into the chapter. So we just have the first page, basically Emma and Rei just noting that, it's already started, we have to hurry to stop Norman before everything goes wrong. They arrive into as far as they can go, but it's a dead end, and the doors, which we saw, the grates basically have been closed off by Vincent and so on. So where are they going to go? This is when Rei realizes they've looked at the kind of maps of this place, so they can actually go up, but only one of them can go up. So the decision is made here that Rei is going to boost Emma up into this kind of section, this kind of upper window kind of area, so she can continue on. He's going to be left behind, and that's basically the idea. Emma gets, boosted, thrown up there. It's too high for her to reach down and bring Rei up, so once again Rei sort of has been left behind a little bit. Now, this is immediately going to be somewhat controversial because Rei was just left behind as obviously Emma negotiated the promise. He wasn't able to go there at the very last step, and it's happened again here. Now, in this case, I think it is different than before because I think they can very clearly just set up. Rei will find his way around in a different way, and they'll probably set up the idea of him arriving will be that really cool, he's going to arrive in the nick of time moment to add his opinion to whatever Emma and Norman most likely are talking about. We'll see exactly what happens here, but I think that's what they're setting up this time. This isn't just that he is not worthy to meet the one and negotiate the promise. This time it is, I think, just, okay, the way that the writer clearly wants to do the big confrontation is Emma and Norman first. Rei will come in maybe with some other characters, and that's the way it will happen. But anyway, we cut back into, I suppose, the massacre sort of in progress. So we have Duke Everk and the Queen here against all of Juran'S forces. So again, we get the cut to the nobles all dead, and the last two remaining kind of members of the kind of demon nobility are the Queen and Everk. We see Jaron here, and Everk notes that even Doza was killed, and that even though he's from a low birth, that just in terms of combat strength, he is second only to the Queen, and that basically him and his forces were killed instantly before anything could happen. It wasn't even a fight, and the question here is just how powerful is Lord Jaron and his forces, because they point out the fact that the person who killed Doza wasn't even Jaron himself. So Jaron's forces are just that good. They are so much better than basically everyone else. So it's just setting up the power level type thing of if all of Jaron's forces are above, basically are the only question is, are Jaron's forces better than the Queen? We don't know that just yet. We sort of get the answer here, but they're better than everyone else. So that's the setup here. A little bit of power level stuff, but Everk also notes that they should be eating the human meat that they've stolen from Lambda and the farms, but Jaron and his clan's forms are closer to that of wild demons. That means that the person behind this attack and the thefts and so on isn't them. It's actually being orchestrated by someone else, that they have this much tact. Who could it be? And the obvious idea is that it's Norman. So he hasn't quite figured it out that it is Norman, that some of the Lambda escapees are behind it, but that he's finally, I suppose, figuring out that all of those, the food, I suppose, being stolen from other facilities wasn't demons. It wasn't other demons that they've sent the army out to kill. They now realize that it actually is, I suppose, humans freeing other humans. But before Everk can act, the Queen steps up, so she's going to actually step ahead of Averk and almost like protect him. And that's what's noted by Juran's forces. The queen pushed Averk to the back. Is that so? And it says here, Averk has been key to this monarchy since the times of the previous king. He has been responsible for much of the hands-on work in the government. If he dies, it'll be trouble, even for the oh-so-great queen. So I like that, getting across that the queen, she seems very much to herself. She didn't care about the others being killed, but Averk is the one that she seems to step up, that she sort of appreciates as maybe the organization sort of aspect that he brings to things, and she's actually going to protect him. So dealing with Averk means we can steal the throne away. Now we can kill the queen. And the plan here is kill the queen, eat her, eat the boy, Norman, and make Jaron the king. And this is where we get the loyalty of Juran's forces sort of characterized here. Just the extent of their loyalty. So they go immediately to attack Queen Legra Valima. They rush in on her all at once. There's so many of them. But she just says, how foolish, puts her hands up. And then we cut to basically nearly everyone who attacked her, their heads have just been cut in half. The idea here is that she's sort of like instantly killed them by just, not just cutting through the eye, which is the weak part, but just the whole head, including the eye. So just instant kill. And she has taken out probably like 15 maybe people at once here, just with her claws basically. So she extends her fingernails to huge sizes and just starts cutting Juran's forces apart. It's really, really violent, just the injuries that I suppose are being inflicted upon people, just instant death. But even among all this death, the other forces continue to attack, and this is where we get the backstory of the loyalty and so on. Lord Jaron is going to the wild. What has happened? He would never do this. And Averk basically notes that anyone who objects to this is also going to be guilty and sentenced to fall to the wild. And we see the forces go to Jaron and just say that they're going to be loyal to him. They don't care about what happens to them specifically. We won't give in. We all support the fact that Lord Jaron is innocent, and that they refuse to acknowledge whatever he was punished for. And so as we kind of cut through basically what happens, we see Jaron begin to go to the wild. So what they do is some of these, I suppose, the people that really respect Jaron, his people, go to him and basically offer themselves up. They say, please eat us, then get away to a safe place, Lord Jaron. And the setup here is, at the expense of his former residence, we were able to live on. They were given a purpose, we were given an obligation to prove they were right. And we cut back to, I suppose, the rest of his forces showing the loyalty here. They continue to attack. The queen just says that it's futile. All of your dodging and standing back up is just prolonging your agony. She continues to cut them apart, slicing heads apart. We've fallen and we've been eaten, and not so we can fatten ourselves up, smiling all the while. This won't end until our justice prevails. And it's just noted here, our revenge is absolute. So this is where we get like the two main guys that support Jaron coming in to attack her. It seems like they have the upper hand, but she just does this backwards dodge and just brings her hand up, slices the guy's head off, and he's been killed here as well. And she just notes, even for being so ugly, you couldn't even scratch me. And the note here is, do you really think that we could do you really think that we thought we could go toe-to-toe with the royal family? And this is when she begins to realize that all of the people who've come in to attack her have explosives attached to them. It looks like sticks of dynamite on a fuse attached to them. And so they've come in here. They know they were going to get sliced up. And yeah, suicide bombs here. They just note that they were happy to have served Lord Jaron and that the rest is up to him. They all scream out glory to King Jaron as the explosion goes off. And the idea is that it looks like the queen is done for here because everyone had these explosives attached to them. Everyone is blown up here. How can the queen make it out of this? It seems like a foolproof plan. They were aware of the gulf in power between everyone else and the royal family, and they've made an account for that by having the bombs in play here. So This is a pretty interesting one. I didn't expect this to be the plan, but if they're setting up Jiren to be as big of a threat as he is, this actually does make complete sense in that, like, I don't think the queen is going to be killed here, because I think she has to make it out. But I like that they are actually turning Jiren into someone much more important than I think we ever sort of thought he would be, even from the negotiation heading into this. Because prior to this, we just thought like he was one of the pawns. He was one of Norman's pawns. He's going to go in there, take out some of the people, then get killed himself. But now he is honestly proving to be a huge, huge threat. Like, he's taken everyone out except Averk and the Queen. And now it looks like he's come up with a plan good enough to almost take out the Queen. So the question almost now, if you assume that it's playing out the way it's going to play out here, is like, it's going to be a huge challenge now for Norman to deal with Juran'S forces if they kind of survive through this. I don't really think that's what's going to happen. I think the explosion's going to go off. I think Jiren's going to feel like he has it won, and that's when something will happen to him. He'll probably get his head sliced off through all the smoke clearing, and the Queen will be revealed to have barely have a scratch on her or something like that, or has only suffered like a minor injury, and they go into some depth on her. I think that's the way they're going to do it, because that's the thing in all of this, that the Queen is the Queen of the Demons, and apart from her name and a connection to like some other characters, we know very little about the Queen. And even this chapter seemed to get across the idea that like Averk is almost kind of more important in terms of like the structure of the world than she is. She gets across her battle prowess here, but personality-wise, character-wise, why is she the Queen? That sort of stuff is what we don't particularly know right now. So, definitely an interesting setup, and yeah, that's what it really accomplished here. We finally got the fight we've been waiting a few chapters for, the Queen versus Juran'S forces. Next is probably going to be the Queen versus Jaron himself, and we'll see how exactly all of that plays out. And the other side of things was Ray leaving himself sort of behind to allow Emma to get closer to Norman. That one, I think, is... until Ray comes back into things and is in the kind of important position we expect him to be in, that is going to remain a sort of controversial decision of, like, where's Ray? Where's Ray? Where's Ray? You're going to be thinking that, like, the entire time. It kind of feels a little unnecessary right now because they were just together. You just did the Emma Ray separation thing just before we met the one and got the promise done. Ray couldn't go there, now he can't come here. It feels a little weird that you're prioritizing Emma so much when Ray is kind of just as much of a main character. So hopefully they have something planned to make him feel, important as well. But it is progress towards the goal. It means that Emma's going to meet Norman first, more than likely. Then Ray can make his appearance at the right time, and we can get that change in dynamic. Because maybe from the writer's perspective, they're thinking that it might be too complicated if we have Emma confronting Norman, and Ray's also there, and potentially other characters are in that scene as well. It might be easier to kind of do it sort of step by step. Emma arrives, she starts the confrontation, it happens, then Ray arrives, he gets his points in, and you go from there. Could be a bit much to have just a bunch of characters standing around just waiting to talk almost type thing. That's why you can't just put everyone in the exact same scene at the same time. But we'll have to wait and see on that. Other than that, I think it was a solid chapter. I think the art at times in this chapter struggled a little bit. I'm not going to say that like I just couldn't understand what was happening or anything like that. But it definitely... this chapter, I feel, was on the more slightly messier side of chapters with regards to art that we've had so far. In the chapters I've reviewed so far, I haven't had much of a reason to talk about the art too much, in that it's been super solid. This time out, just because I think we're dealing with a lot of demons here, and only a couple of them are named, it makes it kind of a little difficult to sort of follow some of what's going on. But I get the core idea of what they're going for here. But I will just note that at times in some of the action scenes, it was a little kind of all over the place, in my opinion. And it hasn't really been something I've needed to say about the series up to now. But I think that's just the, you know, having to switch back between so many different character designs here, and that you have sort of Lord Jiren back to his sort of beautiful self. Then you have to flash back and show monstrous Jiren and all of his forces, and you have to do multiple designs for characters while you're showing this thing. You're obviously having characters charge in, get cut up, get back up, charge back in, get cut up again. It's sort of tough stuff to visually show. You get the idea of what it's going for here, but it's not the cleanest art I think the series has ever had. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this chapter. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.